Stand up for yourself, and I'll back you up. 'Cause problems don't solve themselves. I'll tell you what, instead of would or could, I think you should draw a line in the sand and stand your ground. It's for your own good.
Hello. In a community that cares about itself and how it's doing and forethinking of where it's going, we are finding, as it relates to the war on drugs, many agencies and non-for-profits focusing on how to create and set up a structure of community surrounding the idea of how can we help each other in dealing with this war on drugs. Hello, my name is Roy Poyan, and I am the Director of Families Impacted by Opioids, and we'd like to welcome you to the next episode of The Voice of Families and Addiction. In today's episode, we're going to look at the community and what's available for families specifically that are dealing with substance use disorders. And with that in mind, we want to see kind of what is the inventory? What's the nomenclature? If this was a warehouse of different services, what's available for us to pull down when we get an order for a specific need? So that's kind of the way we might look at this as being a process of sort. And I don't mean to get carried too far away from the nurturing value of love and caring and kindness and empathy, which all are included to this journey, or should be included, as a part of a process and a structure. In other words, we want organizations that can perform for us the things that we need, but we also want them to be given to us in a caring and kind way. We're already in a very bad place as families, and we certainly don't need more of stress or trauma thrown in our direction as we're seeking help from those who are there to serve us in our time of need. So maybe what we should do as families, no, let me correct that. What you really need to do is you need to take hold of this yourself. We need to stop standing off the side in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and saying somebody will do this. I've got news for you. Nobody is going to do this. There's no billable. In other words, there's no resource that you can build to that will reimburse you for doing this. Therefore, it's very likely it won't happen. Oh my gosh. That does not put us in a good place. And it's not likely that it's going to change. And maybe if this episode is viewed years in advance, they'll look back and say, wow, you mean there was really a time when we didn't care enough about the families and how we addressed drug addiction? Because at that point in the future, we'll have the kind of infrastructure that's formed. But we realistically need to deal with this now, and we realistically do not have a unified concept of family education, a center of sort, a place where families can go and say, hey, this is happening to us, and we need help. So who's here that puts help with our needs and understands what we need? And they've kind of thought it through, maybe on a curriculum basis or a support basis. I'm not talking about coming by and picking up formula and diapers and things for my children because my husband has left us in a fit of an addiction. That is definitely needed. We're talking about other types of support that maybe require knowledge building on our part. And that takes kind of a formal thought of, well, Roy, how would we do that? Well, you need a learning series, a series of, say, sessions that guide you through what you need to know. Well, how do we know what we need to know? Well, we've kind of identified that in a previous episode where we've listed out the 18 stages of the person's journey with addiction. And we did that on the purpose that if that is happening to them, what is happening to us? How does it impact us as the family? Well, for that, we've got 32 issues that we've identified. So this is the good news. Matter of fact, this is great news We now have a known list of exactly what's going to happen to this person from the time of experimentation to full addiction to detox, the 3 stages, to the recovery, and then to relapse, and then to other topics of support in the community. And there's just a plethora of different, and this is really great about our society. We do have, although they're kind of silo-ish, we do have all these different programs. The problem is, and I don't know why this is, but it just is, we don't have like one center to go to say, hey, could you please gather up all that stuff out there? And when I come in on a weekly basis and say, hey, I need a tune-up, or, this is what I'm dealing with, can you sit down with me and we can kind of go through, where I am, what issues I'm dealing with, and what's available to help me, and what things I can learn so that I can do this for myself? Because this journey as a family is not about people doing for you. It just isn't. I'm so sorry. I wish I could tell you, if you get in touch with these people, they'll correct it and fix it for you. That's never going to happen. Maybe for some reason we think it's kind of like you stop by the Firestone Tire Center and oh great, they also do oil, and they'll redo my muffler, and by the way, they're a tire company too. They got everything in the center for me, and they'll fix it, and I'll drive out from what they have done. I'll drive out with a car that functions better. That's not this. That's never going to be this. In this sense, it's the same kind of center, but you're going to come in and you're going to be the mechanic, and you're going to be the one that pulls the tires off. You're going to be the one that identifies in the 10 types of enabling, which type of enabling are we doing? And that's really good, because when you're not at the center for the tire repair, well, where are you? Well, you're out driving around in life. Okay, well, same is true for a center like this. If you're not at the center, getting educated and educating yourself and learning how to grow your knowledge base, and then how to determine a solution, develop a decision, design a plan of action. In other words, use the 3 coping skills, which are there in order to help you use your knowledge. You see, a family solution finder learning center, and I'm going to say that word again, maybe because I like hearing it. A family solution finder learning center is about that. It is about you coming in and picking up the different tools, and we will show you how to torque the wrench. We will show you how to twist and turn and put on a little adapter so that screwdriver can fit around that one piece of metal that'll then put you right on top of the nut so you can turn it. Okay, we'll show you how to do that, but it's going to be you doing it. You're the one that's going to get dirty. You're the one that's going to get into your family issues. You're the one that's going to smooth out misunderstandings by using knowledge, and we're going to provide you with that learning capacity, meaning we'll provide the content for you. And what I'm describing to you, and this is the exciting news for us, is that there is a learning center. And on our website, I'm holding up a booklet. It's a very short booklet. And on our website is a booklet titled Start a Family Solution Finder Learning Centers. How to set up a learning center in your community, concept review. And on the back it says, the family needs a place to turn to when living with substance use disorders. They need knowledge about what will happen next, how to prepare for each issue, where to go for assistance. They need to get educated, get organized, and get networked. And so does our local community agencies. Whoa, that's a little bit different. I thought you said this was for the family. No, a learning center is also responding to the needs of the community agencies and the stakeholders. They need to understand that these families' challenges, meaning the community agencies and not-for-profits need to understand the family's journey and challenges. The same is true for places of faith practice and the legal system. All of these are part of the Family Solution Finder Learning Centers. We know what each family will face. We know what each agency will face. We know what the legal system is going to face, and we know what the faith groups are going to face. Let's cut it out here, okay? This isn't magical science. This is real world, easy to understand, and fortunately, easy to put into place because it just makes sense. So let's tell them. Let's go out and tell them what the challenges are of the family. Let's show them what we're asking the family to build in their knowledge base. What is that peer-to-peer? What is peer-to-peer coaching and services? What is medical assisted treatment? Okay? We're going to tell the families that in our Family Solution Finder Learning series. But we're also going to tell, because we're a learning center in the community agencies, the non-for-profits, those people that help the families with their specific services so that they understand all the characteristics of what this will kill stigma. We run around saying, oh, we got to kill stigma. We got to build awareness. Baloney. We got to build awareness. We got to build knowledge. Knowledge is what's used. And when we use knowledge in a way that it's going to benefit us, we actually end up benefiting our community, our legal system, our faith groups, as well as our families. So what we're saying is, because we all know this, as the family goes into the community, they can then be received by a community that understands them. That's where the Family Solution Finder Learning Center at a county level is a real advantage. Guess what? You don't have one. I know you don't have one because this is our program. And nobody's come to us and said, hey, Roy, we want to set up a Family Solution Finder Learning Center. I've got an instructor's manual for certification for the instructor. I've got a commitment to provide you with a Zoom instructor certification. I've got a user manual for how to set up the center with roles, responsibilities, budget, everything you need. By the way, this is all on our website, free for download, or you can buy it on Amazon.com. I've got how to set up an invest in the family ministries so that any faith group can start a ministry that's specific to the needs of the families dealing with substance use disorders. This is not AA, it's not Al-Anon. This is them using their faith practices and combining it with substance use disorders, family education, so that the two are congruent with each other for your congregation. You're not just renting a room, although I'm glad that you're doing that. God bless you for that, because it's very needed. But you're doing this for your group, and you're using your faith practices at the same time. We're doing it for the legal system so that they understand. And you might say, well, Roy, the family court, I mean, they understand families. They understand families from the legal perspective and some of the issues that are dealt with that create behavior that actually demonstrate, they've committed a crime, okay? But they don't really have a deep understanding, nor do we want them to. Everybody needs to stay in their lane. So what we could teach them is a little bit more about MAT, a little bit more about peer-to-peer, a little bit more about enabling and boundary setting and why it's a brain disease. And you might say, well, we already went through that training, Roy, 5 years ago. The Department of Mental Health here in our county came in and gave us an in-service. And I'll say, that's great. And you've rotated your employee base 3 times since then. So, you don't have the same people in the same positions anymore. And therefore, you probably don't know as much as you might think you know based on what you did 5 years ago. Because this is a center that won't go away. It'll be set up by you in your community. It'll always be there servicing all the community. And when we sit there and say, well, what are we defining as community then? It's the family, okay? A community is a gathering of families, okay? It's nothing else other than that. And then when you start to look at, well, then what is a society? A society is a gathering of communities. And what creates the values of a society? It's values of the community. What creates the values and norms of a community? The values and norms of the families that are in the community. If I take you to Sri Lanka, you're going to have a different value system, you're going to have a different community, and you're going to have a different society. And that's because the values, beliefs, the core of who the family members are as individuals is different than what you're going to get in Selma, Alabama, okay? So with that in mind, we need to be very realistic about this, because this can change from, to a certain degree, how you might be handling yourself in Deerfield, Michigan, than how you might be handling yourself as a family in San Diego, California. Believe it or not, even in the United States, our value systems change as sometimes our geography changes, but more importantly, as our families change. So, what do we do then? How can we create a family solution finder learning center that can transcend over all these different types of cultural norms? Well, for one, we create an education series, and that becomes the backbone. And the education series is developed around the individual. We're starting at the very, very nano, small segment of this concept of community. And that is the individual person who sits inside of a family, okay? Said, although, families are defined differently, family members need to learn about the disease and how it progresses. That's universal. What issues will be required their involvement? That's universal. And how their lives are going to be likely change. That's universal, regardless of what your culture is. Those three characteristics exist when substance use disorders has become a part of the family unit. Also, they needed to know who in the community is there to assist them. So then what does the community need? And by the way, I'm on page 5 of this concept review book that we just talked about. Well, for the community, most local communities, there's a lack of understanding about all these issues that the family's going to face. I mean, they just, nobody's ever taken the time to tell them that. It's not typically a part of their human resources program. But with that in mind, we can come in as a family solution finder learning center and do an in-service and let them know, donuts and knowledge, or with a 45-minute presentation from the local family solution finder learning center. That can be a great enhancement. Now, why would we do that? Well, I mean, hello, these agencies and these non-for-profits, all these groups out there that service our needs in specific areas, they have families too. And some of them are going through this. I mean, let's face it, this disease does not know any boundaries. It goes everywhere. And so for that in mind, some of them inside their family. Here's another reason. They'll be more inclined to refer and identify families and suggest that the family gets in touch with your local learning center if they know more about your local learning center. And as opposed to going in and just kind of throwing up a bunch of information onto a board and saying, this is us, it'd be more beneficial if you walked in and said, here's something that we're teaching at our local center that I think would be a benefit for everybody. It's called enabling. And we do it a lot in a lot of different ways in a lot of parts of our lives, even those, especially those that are not dealing with substance use disorders in their families. We all do it. So if I give this to you in an in-service, you now sit there and say, well, I remember when they came through. Nice group of people. We've actually experienced one of their light review of their seminar. And I'm going to make sure that this family just told me that they're dealing with alcoholism with their dad, and that's why they turned the water off. Because we got into a conversation with that. So I actually pulled out a book that is 10 of these seminars that they gave me, and I'm going to actually have them go and get in touch with this local center. Wow. There's a community that's got its act together. I mean, you want to talk about collaboration. Bet you your local mental health board hasn't thought about doing that. But the fact of the matter is, if we empower all the stakeholders where families normally go for services to do just what I just mentioned, and you have a local family solution finder learning center for these people to go to, you're really a stronger community and a better place to live, I might add. So with that in mind, the other place that we find our population kind of parks itself, especially when in this situation, is our places of faith practice. We go to see the pastor or the priest, and we say, Father or pastor, or rabbi, I'm dealing with this. And at that moment, they could give them the same book, only titled differently, The Pastors to Family Table, and that has the 12 seminars, and they could recommend that this family goes to the local center, because you have one now. So the same is true for places of faith practice. These organizations want to participate and provide spiritual care. However, they're lacking in the tools and understanding about what it is to be a family living with substance use disorders. The faith organizations understand suffering. Let's face it. They know that. And they also know how to nurture these families in their suffering. They just don't understand the characteristics of this type of family journey. For them to get involved, we need to give them, meaning if we want the faith groups to get involved, we need to help them to get involved. We need to give them our side of the equation, which is the family that's dealing with substance use disorders education based around the 32 issues that we're aware of. And we've got that. We got that in a model that the faith groups can actually incorporate and use. So the other area is the legal system. The same is true for the local legal system. These organizations want to see steps taken that will mitigate the propensity for crimes related to substance use disorders. They don't like seeing these people show up in court any more than we like seeing them go to court. But the legal system understands the value of positive family involvement. They really get it. They've demonstrated that they get it. They have purposefully changed how they handle themselves. What a group of caring professionals our legal system has become in this way for the needs of our family members that are dealing with substance use disorders. For them to provide such a response, a program with content for the family to learn will be required. And they want to really get into the we want to reduce recidivism, then we need to somehow help the family be better at what they're doing. Because when this whole legal process is over, we don't want to see them coming back in the environment that we're placing them back into. Well, I can assure you, nothing's changed unless you allow it to change, provide it with the resources to change. And our specialty courts program for the Family Solution Finder Learning Center will do just that for your local courts. They'll go out and they'll show them this program and how to incorporate it in their drug court, their family court, their juvenile court, part of the probation process. And when you get down to the other parts of the legal system, while people are incarcerated, that family should be learning on these different learning series so that when they get discharged, they're that much stronger and ready to create a culture that would really empower this person for successful lifelong recovery. And yes, we do have a reentry education series that helps family in that specific area also. Matter of fact, we're going to be doing a whole section of a season on just that topic. It's not only for reentry, but it has a lot to do with reentry. So with that in mind, what can be done? Well, we want to build structure in the community, all right, to deliver the change. Change is what we're talking about. It's all about change. And a process that supports change. So we've got the structure, meaning we got Learning Center, and the Learning Center teaches the families. That's what the structure is for the Learning Center. And the Learning Center goes out and educates the community agencies. That's what the Learning Center structure is there for. They go out and they educate the local faith practice groups. That's what they're there for. So families, community agencies, and faith groups. And they do the same for the legal system. There's 4 areas that a Family Solution Finder gets involved in. 4. So with that in mind, we've pretty much covered the concept that, maybe other people have gathered together and said, let's create a collaboration. Oh yeah, let's get everybody together. Well, once again, let's get the schools together. Oh yeah, let's get the schools together. We'll educate the kids. I know that seems productive, but building awareness is not getting us anywhere. Continue to do it, that's fine. But we need to graduate. We need to grow up and start eating meat and stop, just feeding ourselves on liquids. The fact is, we need knowledge. We need to turn that knowledge into solutions. And then we need to make decisions for the solutions, and then we need to develop a plan of action. Come on, everyone. Let's get on board with this. We need to use those 3 coping skills based around the knowledge that we now have, based around a learning center that is local, and because you or a group of you have taken time to pick up this concept book and then pick up the user manual and then pick up the instructor certification book, and now you're ready to roll. This does not take long to do, okay? You can do it in your library at practically no cost, and then once you get the kind of funding and participation in fundraising, You could, or somebody wants to donate a little retail space for you, or you want to park yourself in a organization that's currently up and running, and you're more of an extension of something that they're doing. That's great. We'll show you how. Just call us 440-385-7605, and you will have a learning center in your community. I guarantee it. So then, what areas are we talking about when we talk about the stakeholders? Let's just take a minute and discuss that. The stakeholders of the community, it's not limited to this, but the treatment facilities are certainly stakeholders. The mental health centers are certainly stakeholders. Sports coaches, emergency room social workers, school guidance counselors, pastors, leaders of faith organizations, the police and first responders, the legal court system, the foster care services, jobs and family services for employment. Employers are stakeholders. Community agencies and healthcare providers. All of those will be people that the Learning Center calls on and provides its services to. So when we get to the whole schematic, it's kind of like you have an inner circle, and that inner circle is the Family Solution Finder Learning Centers. It is the epic center for your families in your county to learn from. And then that spans out to, we have 32 learning seminar series for these families. We have the Pathfinder community seminars, which is what I just discussed about. That's called the Pathfinder, where you go out and you create a path to these different stakeholders. It's a two-way path. You're giving them information, and we want them to give you referrals. And then the third one is the family and the Invest in the Family Ministry model that we would provide for our faith groups. And then the fourth one is the legal system and legal court system with the specialty courts program. So what have we done? Well, we've impacted healthcare providers, we've impacted specialty courts, we've impacted mental health providers, faith groups, and we've impacted the family with either seminars that are provided at the center or e-learning seminars where we're providing them on Zoom, or both, really. So first responders, government agencies, pastors, counselors, employers, social workers, sports coaches, or families online in the comfort and privacy of their home. Wow. I mean, just think about what we just talked about. We talked a lot. That's what happens with podcasts. You talk a lot. Hopefully you're talking about something that's worth listening to. But with that in mind, we now have the ability to do Concept 1. And Concept 1 is the Family Solution Finder Learning Series. It's 4 books. It's the Family Solution Finder Study Guide, Learning Module 1. The Family Solution Finder Seminar Workbook, Learning Module 2. The Family Solution Finder 3Ds Coping Skills, Learning Module 3. And the Family Solution Finder Resource Connection Workbook, Learning Module 4. Well, what does that teach you? Well, progressionarily, it's a progressionary learning system, okay, which is widely used internationally. So in the study guide, you learn 3 learning objectives on a specific topic. Then you take that learned knowledge and you apply it and say, how's this impacting our family? And you do that in the Learning Module 2. And then in Learning Module 3, you apply it to your family in terms of, let's determine a solution, develop a decision, and design a plan of action. Let's face it, we know what's happening now, characteristically by the learning objectives in the study guide for this issue, this situation, this problem. And we've applied it, and we've seen, and we've written out exactly how it's hurting us and interfering with our family life and each of the family members, and the family as a dynamic. And now in this, we're taking some 3 coping skills, and we're determining a solution based on all this junk, and we're developing a decision, and we're designing a plan of action. This is really cool. But you're not empowered until you go out to the community and find a service and a professional to help you do it. Because no man's an island. You're not going to do this on your own. So in Learning Module 4, that's what we do. So would you mind if I took just a minute, and it'll probably take about a minute, and read to you the 32 litany of all the issues that are likely that you will experience in this journey with substance use disorders? Thank you. The family is a system, different roles of the family members. There's 4 of them. Childhood trauma in the family. You need to identify it. You need to get a professional on board to help you understand it. And then you need to develop skills to deal with it. Different types of family therapy. There's basically 4 that NIH and SAMHSA recommend, and they're empirically proven, and they're very good. And as opposed to just going out and saying, I need a family therapist, you'll want to actually name the type of therapy that you'd like to receive. And you can do that when you call your HMO and ask them for an in-network provider for family therapy. The family support structure in addiction. You need to know who in your community, where the 4 pillars are. Getting a diagnosis, get 3. Mental health, addiction, and medicine. Each one of them will have a diagnosis. Each diagnosis will have a stage that condition is in. Each stage will have a plan of treatment. So it could be that you've got 3 diagnoses with 3 different stages in each diagnosis and 3 plan of treatments. Is this starting to get complicated? It is. It really is. That's why you can select any of these. You don't have to take them in sequence as a basis of this becomes your in-home library. That's what we're giving to you for free. Substance use disorders is a brain disease. We need to understand why this is, neurologically, why this is. The disease progresses in stages. We know how it progresses. It's not a mystery to us. You need to know also. Relapse is a part of this brain disease. Stop being surprised that they relapsed. They relapse in asthma, diabetes, CHF, COPD, smoking cessation, weight gain. Why wouldn't they relapse here? This is another disease of the brain, and for that reason, we can expect that relapse is a part of it. Doesn't mean they failed. It just means that something needs to be adjusted. Enabling versus consequences. Well, that's environmental control. And there's 10 types of enabling, and we need to know what they are. So we can identify which we're doing, and likely we're doing one of them, and then get a therapist on board to help us create an understanding and then a plan and how we're going to change that. Addiction behavior, setting boundaries. The boundaries are set around them, not you. Excuse me. I said that the exact opposite. I'm sorry. The boundaries are set around you, not them. It is not them that you can control. It's only you that you can control. Therefore, you're setting boundaries around yourself on what you will accept and what you won't accept ahead of time. And you're communicating those effectively so that they're understood, so that when they're breached, the expectation can be exactly how you have already determined you'll respond, and they won't be surprised either. They'll probably know it before they do it, and they're just testing you to see if you really mean it. The family intervention, 5 stages of change. There are 5 stages of change. Police intervention, emergency medical intervention, legal system intervention, treatment center intervention. These are all interventions, meaning these are things that are going to kind of like impact, penetrate your family system. And for some reason, it's going to seem very disruptive, but in effect, it has to happen because that's where you are in this journey. The family community mapping. This is where you go out and you understand exactly what the services are that are available ahead before you need them. The relapse. There's 3 stages to relapse, and it would benefit you to know them. Successful lifelong recovery. What does that involve from the family perspective? Bereavement. Not necessarily theirs, but it may be that you're helping somebody who's dealing with bereavement, and you want to be empathetic, knowing about bereavement, not just for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others, so that you can be a more empathetic and nurturing friend, is a value for all of us. Spiritual faith practices. If you have spiritual faith practices, now's the time to use them. If you don't, you may want to develop them. Not you may, it's really going to benefit you if you do. This is a battle of good and evil, and that's where the realm is really fought. But in the same sense, we're impacted by it, and we are called to use our faith in these times of suffering. Elements of a family plan of action. You need to write a plan, okay? I see so many families that are sitting there saying, well, we're not quite sure what's going to happen next. You know what? Okay, that's over with because this material's here now. We do know what's going to happen next, so you need to stop saying that and act like it's such a surprise. It's no longer a surprise, okay? Just go through these and you will see it parallels the list of the person who's dealing with addiction. As they progress, so do these issues progress. And they're correlated to each other. You draw lines straight across. So getting networked in advance. When you need a drug court lawyer, that's not the time to go and find a drug court lawyer. If you know that your person is dealing with addiction, especially on a long-term basis, you're going to be involved in the legal system, and you're kidding yourself if you're not. And so it would benefit you now to figure out, and put some money aside. It gets expensive real fast. They usually require a retainer, and they go through that in the first couple of court filings. So you need to get an understanding of, where your monies are going to come from, and what kind of services you can expect. Shop around now. So suicide prevention is a very important aspect. We need to be comfortable with identifying suicide and responding immediately. Not sitting there saying, well, I feel uncomfortable about doing that. Well, of course we do. But you're not really being loving by avoiding it. So we want you to be informed on what is available. And I'm really honest about this. If you know about suicide prevention, you will be much more inclined to do it. If you don't know anything about it, you're probably going to hide from it. And boy, that's suicide's best friend, is people around them who are hiding from it. So financial management, this is real. This should probably be put as the number 2 on this list, although this is not sequential, but in degree of importance. It's kind of like Daniel Boone, keep your powder dry because, you're going to need it later. And so the first time it rains, meaning your first rehab center, if you've only got a little bit of money, don't go setting up to Palm Springs for rehab at $45,000 for a month. You're going to have several relapses, and you're going to need to have the monies that stretch out for that. Foster care services and in substance use disorders or kinship, whichever are required. If your loved one has children, you know that they're going to spend some time in IOP or residential. You know that they may be incarcerated. Okay, so at some point, or family services might show up and say, "Listen, our community, and we want them to do this. Our community determines that this is not healthy for these kids. So we're going to take them from you until you can clean up your act." We owe it to these children to do that. Now, if you're the kind of family that sits there and says, "Well, we don't want them to go to just anybody," well, decide that now. Don't wait for it to happen. You already know that they're addicted. This is an area that's likely to come up. So make a decision on how that's going to be handled now. Narcan, everybody should have it on board. I don't care if they're smoking pot, taking cocaine, doing everything. You might sit there and say, "Oh, well, they don't do fentanyl." Fentanyl's in a lot of things these days. So just assume that fentanyl is there, especially when it comes to having Narcan on board. And you may need more than one. And plus, watch the expiration dates on those. But you learn all that when you take this seminar. So the seminar for peer-to-peer services, they're fabulous, where somebody with lived experience and trained actually tandems with your loved one and for a period of time. And it's a billable service, so it's there for a while now. They can actually help the person deal with the everyday lives in their struggle, especially in the beginning, with successful long-term recovery. Medical assisted treatment, a lot of people misunderstand it. The values are, you cannot say enough good things about medical assisted treatment in terms of what it does to help the person to regain themselves and to be able to bat off these triggers and these cravings and to be able to cope cognitively and rethink some of the decisions that they make on the spot towards pleasure. And now they're able to use more of their right brain logic, reasoning, and judgment, the prefrontal cortex. So how to set up a family solution finder learning center. We actually have number 31 is that seminar, and harm reduction. Thank you. Actually, I think that took more than a minute. My apologies. So we moved to concept number 2. Concept number 2 is the concept of community. And we have a book. Each is the same book. It has 12 selected seminars. And the purpose is that on the spot, when a person, a stakeholder in our community, identifies a family, they would have a couple of copies available and they would give them this book. And the book would then be taken home by this person, and in it would be a flyer to your local family solution finder learning center, and they would contact this group and have an understanding in advance from the book with the seminars. And these are the same seminars that are online with videos and PowerPoint presentations. But they'll be getting in touch with the Family Solution Finder Learning Center, who can then guide them through. So it's part of the Pathfinder concept of going out, meeting with these agencies and these stakeholders. Once again, there are 8 of them: coaches, counselors, community agencies, employers, pastors, police and first responders, social workers, and legal system. So now we've educated the family. Now they have, this is unheard of, they have a place to go, a center that's local. All of a sudden, community agencies, coaches, and other people are saying, have you been in touch with the Family Solution Finder Learning Center? Because they heard that there was addiction in the family dynamic, and they say, yeah, actually, oddly enough, when Billy overdosed, the police gave us a book on it. Yeah, did you get in touch with them yet? No, we haven't. Then all of a sudden, the employer in a conversation with mom's performance at work, and they hand her the same book, and she, only it's titled differently. It says From Employers to Family Table. And she looks at it and she says, well, gee whiz, this is the same book that the police gave us, one that said From Police and First Responder Teams to Family Table. But it's the same book inside. Yeah, are you kind of getting the message that the community wants you to get down to the Learning Center? And we want you to get smart, because that's what you'll do when you go down there. Okay, fair enough. Well, then at church, you see in the bulletin, we're having a Invest in the Family Ministry meeting, and it's for families dealing with substance use disorders. Well, it's Sunday now, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm running into this again. And then Billy goes to court, and they're at the court, and darned if the courts still bring it up with us also. They want to give you the same book, only it's titled differently. From legal system to family table. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, it sounds so much like we're toying with the families. We're not toying with them, but we're saying, hey, come on. This is pretty, we've laid this out. You've got a center now. Somebody cared enough to put the center together with the Family Solution Finder Learning Series for you, 32 episodes. You can take it at home. You can take it on a television series. You can take it as a podcast. You can read it. You can do PowerPoint presentations. You can do in-home seminars or Zoom learning. The Family Solution Finder Learning Series. Have you taken it yet? If not, get going. There's a lot for you to learn. Well, also, there is the Pathfinder. And now we've got an organized, structured way of processing and getting out into the community and really enveloping the community in their understanding. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. And the churches are included. Oh boy, well then that's like all of society. No, not really. There's the legal system. Because of what this drugs behavior does, there's the legal system. And now we've got them included. So not to over belabor it, but there is a process for starting a learning center. Read the book, the concept book, the one that I've been reading from during this episode with you right now. And then consider the feasibility, then consider the stakeholders, and consider the purpose, and then determine what the description is, and then start to understand the structure of it and the process that's used, and then write out what the implementation is and what the outcome might be, and then kind of create a growth map. How will we grow from there? So this new entity is a matter of change. There we go again. I keep bringing up change. Yeah, actually, this whole drug addiction war is about change. And here's the really surprising thing. If you wanted to get right down to who's changing, when you look at all the dominoes and the way that they fall, it's the individual in the family that needs to change. Because they're the person in our society where this all starts. Their functionality and their potentiality to deal with life, to deal with situations, to deal with family dynamics, to deal with the community, to deal with learning, to deal with change. And it all falls from there. And that's why this is not a drug war on our nation or our society. Get out of the way. That's false. This is a war on our families, plain and simple. This stuff has poison in it now. It didn't before, it does now, and it's not going away. Now it's being laced in just about everything, to include gummy bears. So with that in mind, it's coming across the border, an open border. Can you imagine that our society would allow for an open border where a bunch of families south of us have decided they can make us addicted to this? And they're going to have us carried across the border, break it down into smaller sizes, create a thuggery so that nobody disrupts the supply chain, put it into our communities, into what might be considered a diluting concept with mixers and everything in a smaller baggies, and then collect the cash and send the cash back to these families in what is southern western Mexico, the Sinaloa area. So this is really genocide. This is a bunch of families in China, Afghanistan, that are creating algorithms and creating the raw material supply chain, bringing it over for production in Mexico and other places, and then having us carry it to the veins of our family members. This is sick stuff. And the only way that we can really do this is to create a family solution finder. Let's stop this madness, okay? Let's get structure. Let's get process. Let's create the capability to fight for the lives of our family members, because that's where this war is. I want to thank you very much. Of course, and I say it every time, please call me, 440-385-7605. We pick up the phone every time, okay? And as I've shown you, it's pretty darn cheap to do this, because all the material will be provided for you. I look forward to talking with you. God bless you in your journey. And thank you again for watching this episode of The Voice of the Families and Addiction.
Stand up for yourself, and I'll back you up, 'cause problems don't solve themselves. I'll tell you what, instead of would or could, I think you should draw a line in the sand and stand your ground. It's for your own good.